God, it's not working.
So is that like a premium Jason mask?
No, it was eBay one I bought a while ago. It's like painted and shit. It looks good.
You know what else looks fantastic? Both of us on this show in 3D, a new dimension in podcast horror, coming at you in painful blue and red vision. Obviously, you mentioned in the first review that this was the first one that you saw back in, whatever century, dinosaur, meteor, baby Nicholas timeline.
It was accidental. Like, I was obviously way young and shouldn't have been watching these scary kinds of movies. And it was actually the handstand part. We look up and there's a dead body, and then there's the famous machete through the chest, and damaged little child. But I also became a fanboy of Jason for now and for always.
It's the Powerpuff Girls mixture of how to make the ultimate horror fan. A little bit of handstands, blood magic, and you've been on the train ever since. I had the collection, but I never bothered to watch 1 and 2. I was just like, 3D. I'm a man of if you couldn't tell, I'm a man of gimmicks. That's what I like.
To be honest with you, like, novelty wise, I've never really been somebody that drawn to 3D. I never needed to see it in 3D. Like, Jason did it, and then we had Freddy Krueger did it. And even when movies came out to theaters, they remade, My Bloody Valentine. I watched My Bloody Valentine in 3D. That one was just exhausting. Honestly, you could tell every scene that's going to be 3D. It's like, it's a snake or a stick or a beer or a bong or whatever, a doobie or whatever. There's always like an obvious, like, oh, that's 3D. Oh, that's 3D. Oh, that's 3D. It's like, you don't even need to see it in 3D to know, oh, it's supposed to be 3D. I can tell, There's nothing unique about like the actual plot and the story. It follows the same rules, and it just kind of goes into its own thing. What makes this fun is it's really cool side stories. They probably have the most memorable like side character in the whole series, which is Shelly, where he's just doing all these like bits and jokes, and he's just teasing everybody, and it's like it's just fun watching it.
So this had more of the camp, but more of like an intentional camp. Even from something like the music, like the fact it just starts off with this very funky theme song, like it just already sets you on this amusement ride adventure that we're going on. And like you were saying, with a lot of the side characters, kind of like in a Disney roller coaster, we're kind of seeing all the animatronics. It's like, oh, look at that thing. Oh, look at that over there. Like there is so much spectacle within the scenery because we already know the destination.
From here on out, it gets kind of fun. It's like self-identified, like, hey, I'm just a teen killer, like mindless and like zombie going forward. And it's like Saw movies now. It's like instead of just cutting your foot off, now we're going to cut off your hands, your feet, your tail, like whatever it is, what I mean? We're going to do, it's like every time it has to top itself.
One thing that I think we lose by having this pinball of characters is I never really found myself caring as much for our final girl. Like the one reason why I was so fully on her side is just her willingness to live. Like once it kind of came down to her versus Jason, she gave Jason a run for his money because he got knocked out like 3 or 4 times. She just had the chutzpah, she brought it at the end. But if you ask me to recall what her connection was to why she was a final girl, I was like, I have no idea. But she earned the right to live.
I hate to say the final girl just felt like a shoehorn, and we're just kind of forcing her in there. The final struggle to survive and fight off, like she did a really cool job of that. And I think that's what, really adds value to slasher films is the fight that gets put up. But I mean, her character in general is kind of boring, like kind of whiny. She did a great job at fighting, but as far as like slasher films, meh.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was Tom Savini back in the gore role here?
No, that's the next one. Gore is great. I feel like it hits on point. It's not Tom Savini level, but it is still really cool. Obviously, the big thing with the production on this one, it wasn't done in New Jersey. It was done in LA. So, I mean, like you separated. That's why the set looks so different. Like a lot of this stuff was like built from scratch just to make the set. All horror movies in general, I feel, struggle with production. Like I've yet to watch a documentary or look at anything where it's like, hey, we were making a slasher film, everything went wonderful, it was great. Usually it's like on time and under budget is the goal, and most of the time it's like kind of a shit show. Granted, this movie made really good money. Like, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's like one of the highest grossing in the franchise. I mean, obviously 3D gimmicky 83, you know, you can't really go wrong with that. Jason franchise being already good, it's a fun, easy movie to follow. There's zero character development to get in the way of the plot, which is really cool. But you know, it's like realistically, it's a good slasher film. It's a fun slasher film. If you want to just jump into the Friday the 13th series, this is the best one to jump into.
You mentioned one of the better ones with the handstands death that we got there, but I think leaning on the laurels of 3D, probably one of my favorite kills. And this is the first kill where he's donning the mask, is the fish spear gun. You could see the wire with the arrows connected, but it's still so good. I'm over here just ducking and dodging because it's coming at you. But I think that was the first kill where we have Jason in full headgear.
Yes, which it's a really cool scene because he's got that brood about him. Mm-hmm. And this is where you kind of get that first Jason, like, this was like kind of like the no fucks given Jason that we all love, like just the walk through walls and make it happen. Going
back to who I was rooting for as the final girl, I was putting my money on her because we did have much more development with her and Shelly, with them being the ones at the gas station. It was a more brutal death because of that, but once that death did happen, I was like, oh, that was cool. Oh wait, then I don't really care about anybody else dying in this movie. As far as making shitty teenagers redeemable or having any sort of connection, that's a big ask of a lot of movies, and most movies can't really deliver on making you care about teenagers, and particularly someone like Shelly. But they nail it again for the third time, I think.
They did do a really good job at her character, and I mean, you do so much with her. Like, you get to meet her family. I mean, you get to see her fight the bikers and show this. But it's like that's kind of the Jason movies, and it's like it's just like in general they fight. Like, you always fall in love with the character. Like, you always have. There's always a fun character, and you're like, oh, god damn it, I really wanted them to survive. But it's just all in good fun. You know what I mean? Like, that's the beauty of it. If they made you invest enough where you care, like, good job.
With a lot of the stuff coming forward, like, I'm even much more excited to see, you know, what little things deviate from that formula, like the things that are, again, more memorable to each iteration. I forget the guy who's making the show, I forget his name, but apparently he's a massive fan. So I'm trying to, you know, make a mental note of like, oh, hopefully that makes a return in the show, or, you know, all these small things. I'm just hoping to see a man running a supermarket that has a rabbit. That's all I want to see. And maybe a new Crazy Ralph. I wasn't super crazy on this version of Crazy Ralph. He was just crazy because, like, here's an eyeball, but tons of fun all around regardless.
I mean, this is like one of my favorites. It's not my favorite, but is one of my favorites, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. And as far as my horror genre love goes, this is a 5 out of 5. Like, I love Friday the 13th Part 3. It's like one of my favorites. You know, obviously it's one that dove me into the series. I mean, realistically, it's probably like a 4 or 3. But I mean, I love it, so 5.
This was the garlic bread to the Jason viewings thus far, and at least for what I've seen thus far, 4 is the big turkey dinner. So, Mr. Nick, send us out to Credo.
Yes, that's where we fucking do. That's what we do.
Cut out, but hey, good enough. You get the idea.